All right, welcome back, everyone. Episode 266 of Tech Unpacked is officially in session. Mark, I've got to ask you right off the bat, did you see this story about the beauty of uncertainty?
Oh, Jenny, you know I did. As soon as I saw probabilistic computing and 100 million times more energy efficient than NVIDIA GPUs, I was hooked. It's like finding a unicorn that also cleans your house, right? Who wouldn't be interested in that?
A unicorn that cleans your house. I love that analogy, Mark. But seriously, beauty of uncertainty? That sounds almost philosophical for a computer. What even is a probabilistic computer? Can you break it down for us?
Okay, so imagine your computer isn't just spitting out a definite yes or no, 0 or 1. Instead, it's operating with a certain probability, a chance. That's the core idea. Instead of classical bits, which are always 0 or 1, or even quantum bits, qubits, which can be both 0 and 1 at the same time through superposition, these new probabilistic computers use something called p-bits.
P-bits. So not quite quantum, not quite classical. Are they like wishy-washy bits?
Haha, kind of, but in a good way. They don't rely on being perfectly precise. Think of them as bits that are constantly fluctuating between 0 and 1, like a dice continually being rolled. And the amazing part is, they harness this natural randomness, this noisy behavior, to do their calculations. It's counterintuitive, isn't it?
So instead of fighting the noise, they're using the noise? That's incredible. And that's where this insane energy efficiency comes in, right? Because they're not trying to force a precise state every single time.
Exactly. The video we saw talked about it having 100 million times better energy efficiency compared to the best NVIDIA GPUs. Now that's a bold claim, and it needs more peer validation, for sure. But the principle makes sense. Classical computers need to work hard to overcome thermal noise. Quantum computers need super cold temperatures to maintain superposition. Probabilistic computers? They lean into the chaos. They essentially exploit the Landauer limit more efficiently, which is this fundamental physical limit on how much energy computation takes. It's like a scientific loophole.
Wow. So if classical computing is like a perfect mathematical equation, and quantum is, well, quantum physics, then probabilistic is more like statistics, dealing with probabilities and outcomes?
That's a brilliant way to put it, Jenny. Classical is deterministic. Quantum is super cool but super hard to build and keep stable. Probabilistic computing is saying, what if we don't need perfect precision for certain problems? What if an approximate, highly energy-efficient answer is actually better? It's a different mindset for computation.
Okay, so what kind of problems are we talking about here? Because if it's not perfectly precise, I'm thinking you wouldn't use this for, say, calculating your bank balance, right? I'd be a bit nervous about that.
Exactly. You wouldn't balance your checkbook with it. But where it shines is in what they call optimization problems. Think about things like financial modeling, predicting complex systems like weather patterns, or even drug discovery. Problems where you have an enormous number of possible solutions, and you're trying to find the best one, even if best means good enough within certain parameters. It's about finding a needle in a haystack, but not necessarily the needle. Just a very good needle.
So like, if you're trying to figure out the most efficient delivery routes for a massive logistics network, or optimizing a complex supply chain, but that's where good enough could save companies a fortune in fuel and time.
Precisely. Or finding the optimal configuration of atoms for a new material. These are problems that even our most powerful classical supercomputers struggle with, because the number of possibilities is astronomically huge. Quantum computers are theoretically good at some of these, but they have their own serious scalability and error issues. They're still very finicky.
And that leads us to the comparison, doesn't it? Because for so long, we've talked about classical versus quantum as the only two games in town. Where does probabilistic fit? Is it going to take over, or is it a niche player?
It's carving out its own niche. Classical is great for serial, precise calculations. Quantum, while good for specific tasks like factoring very large numbers, struggles with decoherence. Basically, its quantum state falls apart easily, and it's incredibly hard to build and scale. Probabilistic computers, on the other hand, can leverage existing semiconductor technology. We could theoretically scale these much cheaper and faster to millions of p-bits compared to millions of qubits. It's a significant advantage in terms of practicality.
Hold on. So you're saying we could have these almost cheap and cheerful specialized computers that handle certain problems way more efficiently than even a supercomputer, by just embracing the messiness of the universe, that's a concept I can get behind.
Haha, cheap and cheerful, I like that, yes. Because they're less sensitive to imperfections and noise, they can be built with far less stringent requirements. That drastically brings down the cost and complexity, making them potentially much more practical for certain real-world applications, where perfection isn't the goal, efficiency is. It's about pragmatic computing.
That is wild. But what about the accuracy? If it's not precise, are we talking about potentially wrong answers or good enough answers? Some listeners might be a bit skeptical about good enough in tech.
That's a fair question, and it's a concern some critics raise. It's about good enough answers within a certain confidence level. For many optimization problems, finding the absolute perfect solution might take light years. Finding a very, very good solution in minutes is often far more valuable. Think about it. A weather forecast that's 90% accurate but takes 2 minutes to generate is way more useful than a 99% accurate one that takes 2 weeks. In many real-world scenarios, timeliness trumps extreme precision.
That's a very fair point, especially for things like financial modeling or even medical diagnosis, where getting a strong likelihood quickly could be more valuable than waiting for certainty. But how do we define good enough in those critical fields?
That's where the engineering and algorithms come in, Jenny. It's not just a free-for-all. Probabilistic computers use clever algorithms to ensure the good enough is within acceptable error margins for the specific application. For things like drug discovery, it could mean quickly narrowing down billions of compounds to the most promising few, which then get further, more precise, testing. It's about providing high-probability candidates, not final answers for everything.
I see. So they're more like highly intelligent, specialized filters than universal calculators. But thinking about potential pitfalls, Mark, what are the counterarguments? Are there any major drawbacks or skepticism in the scientific community?
Oh, certainly. While the energy efficiency claims are compelling, and some studies suggest they could be far more efficient for specific tasks, widespread adoption faces hurdles. For one, the software infrastructure isn't there yet. We've built decades of software around classical, precise computing. Shifting that mindset and developing robust software for probabilistic outcomes is a huge undertaking. It's not just a hardware swap.
So it's not just about building the chips, but reforming the whole ecosystem around them, how applications are designed. That sounds like a significant barrier to overcome, even with the energy benefits.
Indeed. And then there's the perception of reliability. As you mentioned, for critical applications like financial transactions or intricate medical procedures, even a small margin of error might be unacceptable. The scientific community will demand rigorous, peer-validated benchmarks for accuracy and reliability before these systems see wide deployment in such sensitive areas. It's a trust issue, in a way.
That makes sense. If precision is paramount, even the promise of immense energy savings won't sway people from tried and true deterministic methods. So what's the future look like for these? Are they going to replace all our classical computers? Or are we going to see new hybrid systems, combining the best of all worlds?
That's where it gets really interesting. They're definitely not replacing your laptop CPU for everyday tasks. But there's a strong push for hybrid architectures. Imagine combining the brute force capabilities of classical computing with the specialized efficiency of probabilistic processors. Or even a quantum probabilistic hybrid, where quantum solves something incredibly specific and then hands it off to a p-bit system to optimize further. We might see probabilistic coprocessors appearing in specialized applications, much like GPUs became common for graphics and then AI. It's about finding the right tool for the right job.
So we're not just looking at a fork in the road between classical and quantum, but a whole new sprawling superhighway where different types of computing are all working together? That's a much more exciting vision than one computer to rule them all. It sounds like a true evolution.
It does, doesn't it? The idea of embracing uncertainty, not just in theory but in the actual hardware of a computer, feels like a profound step forward. It opens up so many possibilities for problems we just couldn't tackle efficiently before. And it's a constant reminder that the future of computing is far from settled. It's still being written, and this probabilistic path is certainly one to watch.
I can't wait to see how this beauty of uncertainty unfolds and where it leads us. Mark, thanks for unpacking this fascinating topic for us. This has been episode 266 of Tech Unpacked. We'll catch you next time, everyone.
Thanks, Jenny. Always a pleasure. See you all soon.